Role-playing tips for new players. So what is it when we say roleplay? What does it actually entail? While everybody can control their character, in my opinion, there's a difference between controlling your character and embodying your character. It's very easy for new players to struggle with distinguishing what you know as the player and what your character knows in-game. So in this video, we're going to give some tips to new players for how to actually engage in RP, the kind of do's and don'ts, and how to have fun with it. First of all, if you're new to the channel and you haven't already subbed, I'd really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 200 subs here. We're a very new channel. Me and my friend Happy own this channel, run this channel, create content for this channel. I'm missing my better half today, unfortunately. But you'll see him. If you click around some other videos, you'll find him. I appreciate it if you let us know what you think and leave a comment if you enjoyed. Before we get into the tips, how do you roleplay as your character? To sum it up in one sentence, what you need to do to roleplay as your character is to think and act as your character would, essentially. There's tons of other elements that you can throw on top of it to spice things up, but at the end of the day, that is the core component there. Changing how you speak, adding accents, anything like that, that's all flourish. That helps kind of separate you from your character in the other people's eyes, in a sense. But when it comes down to what the core roleplay is, it is just embodying your character. But moving on to our tips, the first tip being, don't act like the main character. There will be times where the spotlight is on you over the other players and vice versa. That happens during the story. But it's important to remember that you're supposed to be everyday characters in this world. And that D&D revolves around the group dynamic. It doesn't mean you can't be the kind of, the dark, mysterious one over in the corner. But it's important that you still give your character the motive to work with the team. You can still be reluctant. You still have your character be reluctant to work with them, but you have to be able to push forward towards a goal with the team. That is vital. That's where so many people will ruin sessions on others. They want to play their Lone Ranger type character and completely avoid the whole group dynamic. Naturally, you'll find that the characters will fall into specific roles in the group anyway, without anyone ever discussing it. Somebody will eventually take up more of the leadership role. But I guess, as to sum up what the most important part for this first tip is of don't act like the main character, is to let other people have their moments. The beauty about D&D and these other ttrpgs is that when you form a group and you form a solid party, you start to form very real connections between the players. Segueing from that last point of letting people have their moments comes tip number 2. Don't be afraid to play the supporting role. While following your tragic backstory of how your parents were slaughtered in front of you, and you're on a mission of revenge where nothing will stop you. Shout out to all the edgy tiefling rogues. Playing the supporting role for the party can be very rewarding, and it can form those bonds from an early stage when you help one of the party members maybe deal with a certain family situation or by emotionally supporting them through drastic scenarios. This really helps strengthen the connection between your characters. In saying this still doesn't mean that you have to necessarily like the other characters from the get-go. It can be a slow process. You can purposely make it a slow process if you are trying to play this broody kind of like Lone Ranger. That's a loner by accident. Lone Ranger. You can start off by reluctantly going along and helping them out because maybe you have some sort of similar interest in the end goal. Maybe along the way, this character starts to realize that you've more in common with this other character than you originally thought. This also then opens up more chances for dialogue. Going off that point, we come to tip number 3. Use the downtime moments to practice your RP. The beginning and the end of the day are fantastic times to have a quiet moment with your party members and in character try and talk about certain, maybe the things that happen during the day, or maybe you notice something particular about one of the characters. Whether it be sitting down at a campfire or in a tavern having a drink, these settings can allow for some very fun dialogue. Maybe you notice that your barbarian hesitated to strike down an enemy, and maybe once again you saw this tiefling rogue slink down an alley only to reappear 30 minutes later and act like nothing happened. These little moments, and even though as a player you might actually know some of the character's backstory, use these moments as jumping on points where you can open a dialogue with that player character and try and encourage them also to roleplay. This then leads us to tip number 4, which is have a conversation, not questions and answers. In a very loose way, you can kind of think of this similar to the yes and rule in improv comedy. This rule kind of states that you should never say no or but, and it should be like a yes and. So in a way that you keep the dialogue going. That doesn't mean you have to say yes to everything the characters say, but just it's more to keep in mind that that. By only giving a one-worded answer, you cut off that conversation completely. There will be situations where those one-word responses is actually something you think your character would say, and that's absolutely fine. When someone around the table is trying to start a dialogue with you, I think it's a good opportunity to get a little back and forth going and practice with your friend. Tip number 5 is to pay attention when the focus is not on you. There are 2 main reasons why this is very important. The first one being, just because you are not the one performing the roleplay and dialogue at the moment does not mean the information is irrelevant to you. There'll be very important information being discussed and you're too busy looking at your phone. The second one is more of a sign of respect. If you recently had a moment where you were the focus for a part of the story, in my opinion, you should then show the exact same respect people at the table gave to you when you were having your moment. In my opinion, it also shows a lot more respect towards the DM. You always have to remember your DMs have put a lot of their free time into creating these sessions and putting maps together and everything. So the least thing that we can do as players is show up ready to pay attention. So that was our 5 tips of how to roleplay as a beginner. We hope you enjoyed. And just as a kind of note to leave off with, the most important thing about roleplay is have fun with it. There's no shaming at the D&D table when it comes to roleplay. You'll fumble your words, you'll lose your train of thought. This happens to everyone. You shouldn't let this put you off trying. The more that you roleplay, the better you're going to get, the more comfortable you're going to get. And it's always awkward. If you're at a table with people you don't know too well and you're putting on a voice trying to act like someone else, it can be a little bit awkward. But the first person who takes that step makes it easier for everyone else as well. Don't be worried about doing accents and stuff like that, because in my opinion the most important thing is to get into the character's mindset and to be able to talk as if you were that character. And don't worry, if you end up enjoying it, you'll eventually find yourself practicing voices when you're alone in the kitchen cooking dinner, in the car going to work. Trust me, we all do it. There's nothing embarrassing about it until somebody looks over from the other car and sees you doing it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I've even practiced speeches, what my character would say if I came into contact with X person and shit like this. Hope you guys found some use in this video. If you did, once again, appreciate the sub. We're only a small channel here at the moment, but we'd like to get that number up. Feel free to check out our socials. We have TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, most of them. I don't know, there's probably some new ones I don't know about. We're on most of them anyway. It's appreciated if you leave a like and a comment, and yeah, we'll chat to you next time. Happy role playing.